Skill 13, see what God sees, heart sight. We also call Skill 13 God sight or eyesight. Skill 13 means that we see life and events from God's perspective. We ask Jesus, Lord, what is it that you see when you look at this? Now, if we're in the middle of a conflict and we just feel hurt or we feel misunderstood, so we're offended by somebody else, and all we see when we look at them is the person who's the source of our misery. However, when we use Skill 13, we learn to see this person from God's perspective. We say, Lord, open my eyes that I might see. Help me to see from your perspective. What do you want me to know when you see this person? And what we pleasantly discover is that God has a much different perspective. It doesn't negate the painful experience that we've had, but we're finding God's peace in the midst of the hard stuff. I like the story in 2 Kings chapter 6, where Elisha and his servant are in a town that's surrounded by an army. The king is after Elisha, and his army is all around the city, and Elisha's servant is understandably afraid of this army who wants to cause them harm. Elisha, however, is not. He actually has some peace in this situation, so he asks the Lord to open the servant's eyes that he might see. And suddenly the servant sees God's army, chariots of fire, more numerous all around the landscape. Suddenly the servant sees from God's perspective. He doesn't have to be afraid. And so Skill 13 gives us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts to understand some of what God sees when he looks at this. We find God's peace in the hard times, in the hard stuff, in our painful places, because he gives us that perspective that we wouldn't have otherwise, which leads us to care, forgiveness, love, and compassion.